Thank you, and welcome to the Local Government Pension Scheme Pension Board. Today is Wednesday, the 10th of July, and it's 10 a.m. Before we get started, I just need to read the announcement. So, attendance at this meeting. The Council will be holding this meeting electronically. Members of the public may also attend this meeting in an electronic capacity, and there is a link on the Council's website for them to do so. Members of the board are asked to keep their microphones switched off until called to speak, and to switch their microphones off once they have finished speaking. Cameras may be left on throughout the meeting if members wish. If they experience connection or other technical issues, it may help you to switch your camera off. Cameras should be switched on if and when speaking in the meeting. To indicate a wish to speak, members should use the raise hand button. Use of the meeting chat function is exclusively for voting. At the end of the debate on each item of business, there will be a vote. Members should vote using the meeting chat function by indicating for, against, or abstain. I will declare the result at the end of each vote. Breaks of at least 15 minutes will be held every 2 hours, and they will be taken after a speaker in the debate has finished speaking. If we are voting, the vote will be concluded before the break is taken. Other breaks will be incorporated as appropriate. So there's a few announcements. We note the resignation of Tim Perkins and Jack Byford since the last board meeting, and we thank them for their contributions. There are 4 apologies: Jolyon Adam, James Hurley, Sarah Ansell, and Patrick Towie. So for the benefit of everyone on the meeting, the first time you speak, if you could introduce yourself, that would be very useful. Thank you. So we move to the declarations of interest. If there are any declarations of interest, could people declare those now, please? Okay, thank you. So we move to the minutes, the Part 1 minutes. And I just ask the board to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of March 2024 as a correct record. And please could you do that in the chat?
That's agreed, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move to the second item, which is the Pension Fund Statement of Accounts 2023-24, and that's going to be presented by Robert Winterton. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I'm Robert Winterton. I'm the Finance Manager for the Hertfordshire Pension Fund. And this report provides the board with details on the draft Pension Fund Statement of Accounts extract for 2023-24. And also an update on both the audits for 2022-23 and 2023-24. Hertfordshire County Council published their draft accounts that included the pension fund extract on the 20th of June 2024. This was after the statutory deadline of the 31st of May 2024. However, it was agreed in Audit Committee that the accounts could be published in June due to the current issues around the auditing of prior year accounts. The report shows that the fund has increased in value by 510 million over the last financial year, from 5.74 billion to 6.25 billion. Appendix A of the report on page 22 shows the valuation level and actual or estimated value of each of the funds within the draft accounts. Even though a proportion of the level 3 valuations used in the draft set of accounts are from December 2023, officers feel, based on their current value and that a large variation to March 2024 is unlikely, they still present position of the fund fairly. Table 1 on page 17 shows the value of level 3 assets, which you can see is a sizable proportion of the fund. Section 5 of the report on page 20 provides a glossary of the different valuation levels and a description of what they are. Appendix B, starting on page 23, is the audit plan for the audit of the pension fund's 2023-24 accounts that KPMG presented to the Audit Committee on the 22nd of May 2024. KPMG have indicated they plan to start the audit in person next week. However, they have already started working on the pension contributions and benefits working papers. The fund's previous auditors, Ernst & Young, or EY, issued a provisional audit results report to the pension fund following the audit of the 2022-23 annual report and accounts. The pension fund audit is still in progress, with fund officers currently waiting on EY to confirm the complete list of the final outstanding items noted on the ARR. It should be noted that Ernst & Young are happy with the fund's 2022-23 accounts. However, they are unable to formally sign it off because it cannot be separated from the HCC accounts. That's all I was going to say on the cover report, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Rob. Are there any questions? Gail.
Thank you very much. Good morning, I'm Gail Johnson. I'm a retired accountant and a pensioner member representative. Just a couple of points of clarification, Rob, on your report. I'm on page 16 of the pack. Paragraph 2.5, I think that second line probably should refer to the audit results report, shouldn't it? It says assumed rate of return, which is the usual meaning of ARR, but that's
yes, sorry, yeah, so that's correct.
So there's nothing on that previous ARR that needs to be brought to our attention now.
No, not that I believe. Everything is just there was an item on interest or pension committee interests, but we're working with EY to get the detail they need on that. So
right. Yeah.
There's nothing.
And then the next paragraph, 2.6. Could you just clarify what this disclaimer in the middle of the paragraph refers to? This is a disclaimer of opinion, is it? Does it mean that they can't give an opinion? Could you just clarify what the status will be?
Oh right, yes. So before the general election was called, we were expecting legislation to come in to say that all prior year outstanding audits could potentially be qualified, and then sort of so just put a stop on those audits at that point in time and then starting afresh. However, due to the general election, the legislation has not progressed, and we're still awaiting guidance. So we don't know what is going to be the case with all prior year audits at this point in time.
That's a mess, isn't it?
Yes, it certainly is.
Yeah, but actually what you're saying though is that the 22-23 audit is substantially complete, even if in the end it doesn't get an opinion.
Yeah.
It doesn't suggest that we're not starting from the right point for the 23-24 audit and going forward. Yeah,
that's correct.
So presumably something has to be put in place now and going forward to make sure this it's just backing up, isn't it? It's just a real mess. Yeah.
No, they need to just as I think they were planning to, is just put a stop on it because it is in such a mess, and let's just move forward from 23-24. But unfortunately, we don't have any further updates on that at this point in time.
And just the final point then is the I mean, I've been referring to the pension fund here, but is the council audits, they're at substantially the same stage as well?
Yeah, at Hertfordshire, yes. We're just waiting on these final sort of guidance on what we should be doing and what and to be fair, it's what EY should be doing. What do they need to do to finalise?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Are there any other questions? Okay, in which case can we please note the report in the chat?
That's noted, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now move to item number 3, which is the Hertfordshire LGPS Q4 LPPA performance report, and that's going to be presented by Taryn and John. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So I'm John Crowhurst. I'm the Operations Director at LPPA, and we provide the administration service to Hertfordshire Pension Fund. So in the reporting pack today, we've got the performance covering the period between January and March 2024, and there's also an annual report covering the full financial year between April 23 and March 24. What I'll do is I'll draw out some of the key highlights from the Q4 report, and I'll also give you an update on performance since April, and then I'll give an update on some of the key strategic projects that we've got ongoing at the moment. So in Q4, performance overall against the service level agreement was good. It was 98% across the 2 key processes. Retirements was 96% and bereavements 98%. So during Q1, so covering the period between April 24 and June 24, performance again was good, overall 98%, and both retirements and bereavements 97%. Moving on to the help desk, average wait times remain low, between 1.5 and 3 minutes for the Hertfordshire Pension Fund members that are contacting us. Steady flow of call volumes, so we were handling just over 2,000 calls per month during Q4. And you can see on one of the pages in the report, we show the average wait time generally. And now we can see that 75% of callers are now waiting less than 2 minutes, which is significantly better than what it was 12 months ago, which is good. From a satisfaction perspective, the help desk satisfaction scores remain good. Retirement satisfaction volatile. And we did a deep dive. I can't remember if it was the last pension board or the one before, where I gave a bit more of an overview as to the surveys that we were conducting to those that have retired. Just for some context, we issue surveys to around 75% of retirees during the period. So that's typically the members that have provided us with an email address. We receive a response rate of between 20 and 25% of those that are surveyed. We receive verbatim comments in addition to that, so we've got a pretty good idea of what the retirement experience is. And when I talk about some of the strategic projects, I'll give you an overview as to some of the activity that we're undertaking to try and improve that member journey. Moving on to pension point registration. So this is the member portal that your members register for. So we saw just over 3,000 members register during Q4, which is good. So that takes us to around 40,000 members across the fund, which is about 30% of the overall membership. Monthly return process again is going well, and thinking about the statutory deadline to produce the annual benefit statements by August, we've received just over 98% of the data to March 24, which is good. We've already produced 99.82% of deferred statements and issued those. So they're either published on Pension Point, or those that have elected to receive a hard copy would have received one in the post. And we've produced 18% of active member ABSs. So we are on track to deliver to the statutory deadline, which is great. What I will say is that employers are definitely getting used to submitting monthly return submissions to us. It's progressing quite well. Not all employers are up to date, but we're working with those that still need to submit the files. What we are seeing is quite a lot of queries being generated from the processing, typically around missing leavers. So our employer engagement team are working with those employers that we need to resolve queries for. But at the moment, the response rate is quite low, if I'm honest. So there's still some work to do. And we've also been engaging with officers at the fund to make sure that we're working collaboratively to overcome those challenges at the moment. We've got the triennial valuation next year. So for data to March 2025, around June, July time, we'll be providing a data cut from the system to your fund actuary to do the triennial valuation. So as you may recall, we've got a huge data project underway at the moment to check the integrity of the data that we hold on the pension system. We will be in a position to provide the fund with an overview of what that looks like during Q2, so between July and September, which should give us some time to resolve any material data quality issues before we do the submission next year. What we are aware of at the moment, as I've sort of already touched on, is we've got quite a lot of unprocessed leavers. So these are people that we believe have left the scheme but still haven't been processed as leavers, so they could be due either a deferred benefit or a refund of contributions. And that's partly some resource challenges on our side, which I'm working on with my team at the moment, but more so that we haven't received the data from employers. So that exercise needs to pick up quite quickly. Next is the two regulatory change projects that we've got underway. So the first is the McLeod remedy. So just so that you're aware, the data collection exercise that we were undertaking from employers is completed. We have identified the members that are potentially in scope for a remedy calculation, and that works out to be about 24,000 members. So this is across active deferred pensioners and people that have left the scheme or passed away. So 24,000 members, which is about 17% of your membership. What will happen in September, we receive the functionality into our system to identify who actually does need a remedy calculation. So in October, I'm expecting to be able to come out to fund officers and give you the exact number of members that we need to do a calculation for. That exercise will be undertaken, and a lot of that activity will be able to be processed in bulk. So we'll be providing a plan to show how we're going to deal with that activity before the deadline next year. Pensions dashboard. We have a project mobilised at the moment as part of the data project that I've already mentioned. One of the exercises that we are undertaking is our pension dashboard readiness. So how much data have we got that needs verification, and what we're going to do to undertake that exercise. So that's going quite well at the moment. We've appointed our integrated service provider, and we also plan to host a number of roundtables with our LGPS clients. We found that doing that for the McLeod remedy was actually quite helpful, because we had some good questions coming in from each of the funds, and it was good opportunity for us to have a discussion about all of the activity that we needed to undertake. So we're planning to organise some roundtables for that. And then the last thing I'll mention, just coming back to the satisfaction, particularly around retirements, there's some additional KPIs that we're looking to introduce later in the year. Some of this you've probably heard me speak about previously, but they're all aligned to things like the elapsed time of some of our key processes, to how long they take in, and how many retirees actually receive a pension payment within 30 days of their retirement. The plan is to introduce some of that information into future reports, so the pension board will have visibility of some of this. And there's key activity that we're undertaking to try and understand how we can positively influence that. So the first is obviously how far in advance we're notified of someone retiring from an employer. So we've got some information with regards to that. And a key thing for me is those employers that are not necessarily giving us as much notice as we would like, how can we make that process easier for them to provide the information to us? Because there are still quite a lot of instances where we're told during the month that someone's left, so we need to make that process a lot easier for employers. And secondly is, when LPPA pick up the process, how quickly do we undertake the activity that we need to do in order to facilitate the first pension payment? And there's lots of data, which I won't go into detail around now, but I will when you see the KPIs in the future around some of the things that we can do to facilitate that happening quicker than it does today. So I'll pause there, Chair, and happy to take any questions from the board.
Yeah, thank you, John. It sounds like because we're in a better position currently, we've got more space to plan for future projects. So that's quite positive, I think. Sharon, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, John. That was really helpful update and good to see the service improvements. I think we should note the data quality scores have improved, although obviously the common data scores for deferreds is still lower. But John, that was a helpful update saying that there's still outstanding leaver data, which we heard at the last meeting, potentially impacting that. So hopefully we'll see that improve at the next meeting. I wanted to ask for an update. In Appendix B, there's a note stating, and you've mentioned this already, the annual benefit statement. So that it states you've received data from employers to issue 30% of the annual benefit statements by the statutory deadline of 31st of August. And then you mentioned that the monthly returns and queries are affecting this. But I wondered if you had an update on to give us a better idea of that 30%, how that's shifted. Because I know you've said in the report that there's work ongoing to increase that percentage so that you can hit that statutory deadline of 31st of August. Was there any further update apart from the one you've already given on monthly returns?
Yes, there is. Yeah. So, so there was there's a couple of large payroll providers that we're working with to get the data in. So that's now with us now. So we've actually got 98% of the data that we need at March. So it increased quite significantly between the reporting period and now, which is great. And then we have got outstanding queries with employers. Some of those impact annual benefit statements and some don't. So what my employer engagement team will be doing is contacting the employers that have got the largest number of queries that impact the annual benefit statements run and try and work with them to resolve those queries. And I know that Taryn's probably going to come in now as well, but I know that Taryn's team are also doing the same. So we're working quite closely on this to make sure that we're focusing in the right areas.
Hi, just to follow up on what John has said, my team are also following up with employers on behalf of the fund to support LPPA in getting as much data as we can. I did get an update from John's team last week, and I think 99.82% of deferred annual benefit statements have been run, and the active ones, they're on target to produce more than 95%. There isn't any concerns at the moment. So that's what I had to add.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? In that case, we're asked to note the report. So if we could do that in the chat, please. Thank you. I think that's noted.
That's noted, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move to item 4 now, which is the Employer Risk and Governance report. And if we could ask Anne to present on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Employer Risk and Governance report for January to March 2024. So the number of red risk rated employers decreased by 6 this quarter due to a reduction in the number of outstanding admission agreements. The number of employers being monitored under each risk category is outlined in Appendix A. Table 3 outlines the number of employers within each red risk category, which is closely being monitored by fund officers. Within the category of employers with outstanding deficits, we had an employer who hadn't engaged with the fund since May 23, as they disputed their liability. We instructed our external legal advisors who confirmed that there is a liability to the fund, and that prompted a swift re-engagement with the fund, and the cessation debt is now subject to interest as well as being renegotiated by us and the employer. We've also been successful in de-risking an employer who joined the fund without adequate indemnity arrangements due to the regulations at the time. The employer approached the fund with a proposal to partially cease, as the market conditions at the time meant that their pensioner and deferred assets and liabilities were valued at a surplus. We suggested that the fund will proceed subject to them entering into a new admission agreement with their scheme employer as a guarantor, which they accepted. We're now in the midst of finalising this process, and that will result in a further reduction in this risk category next quarter. The number of outstanding admission agreements is highlighted in Table 5, which has decreased by 7 this quarter. All employers are engaging with the fund's legal team, so we've not been required to enforce the admission agreement delays policy this quarter. Within the over a year category, we currently have 4 admission agreements due to be returned to County Council for signature and sealing, and we'll continue to engage with the other employers within this category. We have begun setting up meetings with prospective employers joining the fund, just to provide them with an understanding of admission agreements and the importance of getting them signed promptly. And this has been received positively thus far. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Anne. Are there any questions? Gail.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Anne. As you know, we're always keen to see the red risk category kept under control, and it's really good to see it's going in the right direction again. I think there's just that worry about, well, one worry is this employer in table 3 who's been arguing the toss, possibly not since 2013, but about a deficit valued in 2013. Is there any progress on that? Because looking back on the papers, that seems to have been with us for more than a year.
Yes, thank you, Gail. So this particular employer disputed the way they were valued when they were transferred from our previous actuaries, Willis Towers Watson. And as a result of that, our actuary has agreed to revalue all of their funding positions since the transfer happened in 97, I believe. And due to that, that is taking a significant amount of time. However, our actuary has agreed to provide this cessation valuation as they requested before we transfer over to Barnet Waddingham. And that's the only reason why it's still there and hasn't really moved yet.
Yeah, I was just concerned that it could just, drag on and not be resolved at that point. So that definitely is in hand.
Yes, that is in hand. Once our actuary prepares the revalued report, if it should still show a deficit, then we will enforce that with the employer.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I can't see any, so in which case we're asked to note the report in the chat, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
That's noted, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we move to item 5 now, which is the Pension Fund Risk Register report, and that's going to be presented by Alison Sharp. Alison, thank you.
Good morning all. Yes, I'm Alison Sharp and I am one of the governance officers at the Herts Pension Fund. So this is the the quarterly risk register for period January to March 2024. Officers feel that the current ratings are at an adequate level and remain much the same as the previous quarter, October to December 2023. However, there are a few things that need to be noted, so a few additional risks, and these have been added on the register. The first one being is a large project which has been added to as item F7, and this is the Matthews discrimination against part-time firefighters. This falls under the firefighter scheme. The second risk that has been added to the register, which is also a large project, and this has been added as F8, and this is concerning our new actuarial services. So, and the transition, which we starting new, as you know, we're starting with a new actuarial service in September, Barnet Waddingham. And one further additional item that I would like to be noted is that there is a new sub-risk that has been added as item 2 under risk C3, which is employers notified annually of member contribution bans to ensure correct deduction from scheme members. So those are the changes to the register this quarter, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Alison. Are there any questions? Can't see any questions, Alison. So in which case, we're asked to note the contents of the report. If we could do that in the chat, please.
That's noted, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we move to item number 6, which is the training report for 2023-24, and that's Taryn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update on training requirements for committee and board members and provides a summary of training delivered in 23-24 and sets out the training plan for the year ahead. Knowledge and understanding requirements for board members remain the same. However, in the next steps on investment consultation in July 23, there was a question asking whether there was a requirement for administering authorities to have a training policy for pensions committee members and for authorities to report against this policy. The responses show that 91% of those who responded to the consultation are supportive of those proposals, and that many funds already have well-established training plans in place, and that includes Hertfordshire. We are expecting revised guidance to align training requirements for committee and board members and for us to publish our formal training policies. Training and attendance for 23-24 is detailed in the report, and the various avenues of delivery are also mentioned. The training plan for 24-25 is also set out, which is in line with the SIP for knowledge and understanding requirements and our business needs. This training plan may change to reflect current issues as they arise throughout the year. You'll also note that LOLA, the local government online learning academy, which is provided by Hymans, will cease on the 31st of August, which is when our current actuarial contract with Hymans ceases, at which point we'll move over to Barnett Waddingham's platform, which is called Enlighten. So we'll be in touch with more information at the time. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Taryn. Are there any questions on that? Gail?
Yeah, thanks, Taryn. It was just actually a bit of clarification on LOLA. You got statistics on completion of the LOLA modules. I'm not sure to what extent those are used. I'm just a bit concerned because I thought, well, I better have a look at it and see what I haven't done. And when I went onto it recently, it seemed to have cleared everything and said I hadn't done any of the modules, but I know that's not the case. So are those statistics reliable?
Yeah, so we've taken the statistics from over 2 years. So I know that you completed them previously, and that is included. And
Right.
what happened is that Hymans updated their platform, which then cleared down everybody's results. But we've maintained them ourselves. So yeah,
Okay.
they were
are
included.
accurate. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks very
No problem.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, in which case I'm going to read the full recommendation on this one. It's a bit more involved.
Chairman, sorry, but Brian
Yep.
Kane wants to speak.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Adam. It's just I think Gail and Taryn between them have allayed my fears about the new training platform. Just echoing Gail's remark about the results being cleared down. So the last time I went onto it, it was quite evident I had done nothing, despite the fact that I had completed the training platform requirements. But just a brief question for you, Taryn, if you might know the answer to this one. With regard to the Enlighten platform, will that carry over substantially what's on the existing Hymans Robertson platform in terms of
Not
standard
everything
tuition?
is there at the moment. Barney Waddingham are working on increasing what is available on there. There's 3 modules at the moment, and in those modules there's about 6 videos which are sort of maybe 6 minutes-ish long. So they're quite bite-sized, and then there's like a test at the end. But Barney are going to continue to work towards putting more information on that platform. And we're also looking to be able to, when we have like an MS Teams session and we record that training, and if you're unable to attend, we've been circulating that through Hearts FX. But we are actually working with Barnet Waddingham to be able to put those training sessions on there so that they're all available for members in that secure area, and you can actually sort of dip in and out when it's convenient if you're unable to attend the live session. So we'll hopefully see some improvements. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Taryn. I'm suitably reassured now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the full recommendation on this one, okay? So the recommendation is that the pension board members note the content of this report and make a continued commitment to undertake training and to improve and maintain their good knowledge and understanding of the local government pension scheme. And could you please agree that in the chat?
That's been agreed, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So we move to item 7, which is the pension fund funding update and investment performance report as of the 31st of March 2024, and that's going to be Rob Winterton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to do a brief introduction to this report before handing over to our investment consultant, Sandy Dixon. So this paper is the funding update and investment performance report for the quarter ended 31st of March 2024. Appendix A from page 149 shows the funding position for the 31st of March 2024, taken from the current actuaries funding risks monitoring tool. It currently shows a figure of 139%, which is an increase of 33% since the last formal valuation. As said previously in previous meetings, this figure is prepared only for the purpose of providing an illustrative funding position for the pension committee, and it's not a true position and doesn't meet any regulatory requirements. Appendix B from page 159 shows the investment performance of the pension fund. For the quarter ending 31st of March 2024, performance was 3.9%, which outperformed against the fund's benchmark of 3.7%. For 1 year, 5 year and 10 year, performance all outperformed the benchmark. So 1 year it was 9.2% against 8.6. 5 years it was 4.9 against 3.1, and 10 years it was 6.7 against 5.4. The little anomaly was the 3 years performance, which was a performance of 1.9% against the benchmark of 2.2%. That's all I was going to say. I'll now hand over to Sandy to talk through the detail of Appendix B.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Chair. So, yes, as Rob said, I'm Sandy Dixon. I'm from Mercer, who's the investment consultant to the pension fund. I'm probably going to repeat a fair amount of what sort of Rob said. Jem, would you like me to share my screen so I can sort of talk through things, or would you prefer to?
Yes, please. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I'll apologise. I've made a few notes, so you'll see behind the curtain here. So hopefully you can see sort of the funding level charts on that page. Lovely, and I'll just zoom in a little bit and sort of reiterate. I mean, the whole purpose of the pension fund is to make sure we have enough assets to pay our liabilities out into the future. So the funding level is sort of a snapshot in time, going how many, how well funded are we? On that basis, how much assets do we have relative to our expected liabilities going forward? So the last formal valuation, it was 106%. As Rob mentioned, as you can see, it's been quite a significant improvement in the funding position over the last 2 years. Kind of a tale of two halves, as I'm sure we're excited about the years later. The first year, so going from March 22 to March 23, saw quite a significant improvement, going up to 130%. In reality, this was really driven by the liabilities, so the value placed by the actuary on those future cash flows to members, reducing at a faster rate than our assets. Over that period, the assets actually fell, and we had negative performance, about 6%-7% down in terms of assets, but our liabilities fell at a greater rate over that period. Then going from 31st of March over the last year to 31st of March 2024, our assets should produce really strong returns, which we'll come on to in a minute, and liabilities have probably maybe dropped a little bit, but that's really been driven more by the asset performance. So the improvement from 22-23 was liabilities falling quite significantly, and then since then we've had quite a decent return from our assets, which is driving returns. And I guess just to illustrate that point a little bit more, the discount rate is very key in like valuing the liabilities, and that's the sort of the asset return we want to achieve to sort of maintain or stay where we are. In March 22, the discount rate was 3.8%. So to stay at that 106% level, we need to get 3.8% per annum over the long term to sort of maintain our funding position. Now, to maintain that 130 odd percent, we need to get 5.9% per annum just to stay there. Clearly, obviously, we don't want to. We'd like to maintain a surplus as possible, but just to go, if we were to do the valuation as at that date, you would need 4% just to stay at 100%, which would certainly be achievable given you could lend to the UK government. So UK gilts are yielding over 4% currently. So you could de-risk massively and still be sort of very, very well funded. So long way of saying, high level, the fund is in a very strong financial position, and that has been, achieved over a number of years. If you go back in time, you go back to 2013, the funding level was about 83%. That improved in 2016 to 91, in 2019 up to 98%, and then the final valuation 106%. So it's been quite a long time frame to get to this position. And now we're already starting to think about, okay, the next valuation is in March 2025. If we're accepting we're going to change the actuary and this new actuary, we need to engage them to understand what their thoughts are on the valuation. If we have got into this precious sort of position where there is maybe a small surplus, how can we maintain, protect and nurture that surplus over time, and hopefully then pass on benefits to employers over time. So that's really going to be the focus of the next 6-9 months, evolving our thinking of how can we make sure the investment strategy is really aligned to that funding strategy to try and maintain that surplus where possible and nurture it and grow it over time, because I think it's a really unique position we've been in. We haven't been in for like decades in this position, so I think that's going to be the focus going forward. So that's the sort of high level position. So now I was going to touch on some of the reasons of how we've got into this position. And I mentioned more recent increase has been due to liability values falling, but actually over the long term, we're thinking back over 10 years when we had funding levels well below 100%, the assets have returned 6.7% per annum. So that's every single year for the last 10 years, annualizing at 6.7%. So that's really strong returns, and in fact also well above the benchmark as well. So the decisions by committee using active management have really paid off over that long term in sort of very strong investment returns. I've mentioned maybe a small blip over the last 3 years, underperforming slightly. Whilst I'd love to say we'd be able to outperform all the time, I think we have to accept that there will be times we do under and outperform. But actually, the evidence is that over the long term, the fund has consistently sort of outperformed the benchmark. And even if it hadn't even just returned in line with the benchmark, that's still very strong returns over the long term, which led to the strong funding position. Turning to maybe more recent markets, obviously the last year seen very strong returns from equities. So we have roughly half our fund's assets are in equities. Equities are up around about 20% over the 1 year period, hence why you kind of get a 9% return. Other assets have kind of been diversifying, moving mainly sideways. To give a very brief update to the 30th of June, because I know all these numbers 31st of March, we're now in July. Equities are up slightly over that sort of 3-month period. Yields are flat, maybe down a little bit. So I'm thinking about the funding level, our assets might have increased slightly, our liabilities might have decreased slightly. So I think the funding level is probably similar, if I can have that with a grain of salt. So I think the fund's still in a very strong position. I was going to stop there and just ask if there are any particular questions in this public part of the meeting, and we've got a more detailed report in the private session later.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions sort of pertinent to part one, obviously, given that we'll have a sort of second chance to ask questions in part two as well? So are there any questions at this stage? I'm not seeing any hands go up, Sandy, so perhaps there'll be questions in part two. Okay, in which case, can we please note in the chat the funding investment performance reports, please?
That's noted, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next item is just talks about the dates of future meetings, and they're all listed. They're all listed there. Our next meeting will be the 18th of October 2024, and that's currently scheduled as a virtual meeting. I would like to do a face-to-face meeting at some point, but I understand that it can be difficult for people to travel in, etc. So that's something we're still sort of working on. But the current basis of the next meeting is online. So so that takes us to item 9, which is any other part 1 business, and there is none. So now I think we just need the confirmation that the recording, etc., is stopped so we can move into part 2.
Okay, just give us a moment, please, Chairman.
Thank you.